Coming up next on Kids TV and Me, author, illustrator, and children's television enthusiast Joshua Stauffer will be talking to you today about this.
Yeah!
Roll up, everyone!
That sounds like Pig. I wonder what he's up to.
Sweets! Candy!
Hello, Pig. Hello, Arnold. What are you doing?
Welcome to my shop, Kipper. This is my assistant, Arnold. Would Kipper like any sweets?
Oh, yes, please. I can't decide.
Would you like a free tasting?
Oh, yes, please.
I'll do the tasting. First, there's sugar hearts.
Hello everybody, Joshua Stauffer here, back with another episode of Kids TV and Me. This is episode 11, and today we're going to be talking about Kipper the dog, because it is the second Saturday of the month. Last month we did the Gizmo, Kipper's Circus, and the Lost Mug. Remember last month when I mentioned the scene in the Lost Mug that was very quiet, there was no music, no dialogue, and hardly any sounds when Arnold was playing with the squirrel in the woods and he found his mug there? And I said that part felt just slightly scary. It wasn't so much the silence that was scary, it was the fact that the music stopped kind of abruptly right before we had that 30 seconds of silence. And sometimes a sudden silence can scare me just as much as a sudden noise. So that's what I meant there. Anyway, this month, we're going to be talking about Pig's Shop, Water, Water Everywhere, and the Costume Party. According to the episode list on Wikipedia, Pig's Shop is episode 57, Water, Water Everywhere is episode 56, and the Costume Party is episode 59, so it kind of goes back and forth a little bit. The copyrights on this episode say 1999, but they aired in February and March of 2000 in the UK. Now, this particular recording that my mom made for me when I was little is actually not from Nickelodeon. This episode was actually recorded from WHP CBS 21. Yeah, it was the fall of 2000, and that was when our local CBS station began airing some popular Nick Jr. shows, and Kipper was one of them at the time. So on this tape that I have, the bottom right corner is actually a little bit crowded. We see the Nick Jr. on CBS logo, and then also there's the logo for WHP CBS 21 right over top of that. It doesn't look too bad, though, because the WHP thing is right over top of the big green eye for Nick Jr. on CBS. So now let's begin today's analysis with episode 57, Pig's Shop, which is the A episode of this Nick Jr. program. Here we go. First thing we see is Kipper walking along, and he's twirling something around. At first it's kind of hard to tell what this is. There's something tied to a string there, and Kipper's just twirling around and around very happily. And then he hears Pig saying, roll up, everyone. Now apparently, roll up is a fancy way of saying, step right up, folks. Come on down. When I was little, I thought Pig said row up, because when you stand in line, like row is another word for things being lined up. So I thought row up was another word for line up, but no, Pig said roll up, R-O-L-L, which basically means the same thing in this case. And Pig says, sweets, candy. And Pig is standing behind a table with a tablecloth on it, and there's 4 jars of candy in front of him, and a little yellow cash register, and Pig's wearing a green apron. And Kipper goes up to Pig and says hello, and Pig welcomes him to his shop, and says, this is my assistant, Arnold. And Arnold's standing right there with him. And Pig asks Kipper if he would like any sweets, and Kipper's looking at him, and he can't decide which one he likes. Or which one he wants to try, rather. This guy reminds me of the Frog and Toad episode we did a month ago, where Toad was trying to decide which ice cream he wanted. But in this case, Pig doesn't sing the flavors. Instead, he offers a free tasting. But unfortunately, it's not quite as good as you might think. First, Kipper thought that he was going to get free samples, but it turns out that Pig is going to taste them for him. Okay, I don't know what good that would do, but I guess if Kipper can see how much Pig is enjoying the candies, then I guess that would be a effective advertising gig. I don't know. I mean, TV commercials do that all the time to get people to buy certain foods. They make it look really good on the screen and show people enjoying it, so I guess that could work, although it seems a little greedy if you ask me. Just Pig eating the candies himself. So Pig picks up the first jar and says, "First, there's sugar hearts." Now, I have no idea what kind of texture or consistency these candies are supposed to be. I don't think they're hard candies because, as Pig eats it, he says, "They're like jelly and taste lovely and sugary." So if they're like jelly, maybe it's some kind of like gummy or jelly bean hearts. When I was 3 years old, I thought they looked like big pieces of Jell-O, even though they didn't jiggle around. But since it was like almost as big as Pig's hand, I thought it was like a big cut-out piece of Jell-O, like a heart shape. Then we see Arnold trying to reach into one of the jars. Pig says, "No, Arnold, they're for the customers." And just as Pig is getting ready to taste the candy in the next jar, Arnold very quickly reaches into the jar of sugar hearts and starts eating lots of them. And wow, I never noticed this before. You can't really see it on the old VHS tape, but looking at this on YouTube, I can actually see Kipper drooling a little bit as he's watching Pig and Arnold eat all these candies. Poor guy. So Pig continues, "Next, we have the lemon fizzer." He sucks on it and says, "It's the most fizzy you could get." Alright, he's sucking on this one, so maybe that is hard candy. Almost like a lemon cough drop, but without the menthol. But a fizzy hard candy? I've heard of lemon soda, but fizzy candy, is that even a thing? Yeah, I'm Googling this here. Apparently some candies do have some kind of like fizzy filling inside that kind of explodes and bubbles in your mouth. I don't know if I've ever had anything like that before. I don't eat very much candy, so I don't know everything about that, but apparently Kipper likes those things because he says, "Ooh, I love lemon fizzes." And there's Arnold with his mouth all stuffed full of sugar hearts, so you can see his cheeks all puffed out there. Now, the next one confused me a little bit when I was little. The next candy is the strawberry click clack. That almost looks exactly like the sugar hearts, except it's a little bit redder, and the first sugar hearts are a little bit pinker, but they're almost the same shape and color. And I thought the sugar hearts would be strawberry flavored. If they're not strawberry, I wonder what they would be then. Cherry, perhaps? I don't know. But anyway, Pig says that it's called a click clack because the strawberry click clack goes click clack on your teeth. Kipper thinks that's a funny name. Click clack. So the strawberry click clack is definitely a hard candy because it goes click clack on your teeth. And the sugar hearts are more like jelly, so probably different texture there. And my goodness, Arnold, how many lemon fizzers did you just eat? We can see like the fizz kind of foaming out of his mouth. Sheesh. And finally, the last one, Pig's personal favorite, the gobstopper. Now, this particular kind of candy is often referred to as a gobstopper in the UK, but here in the US, we often refer to them as jawbreakers. When I was little, I thought Pig said gulp stopper, meaning you can't gulp it down. But it turns out that the word gob is a slang term for mouth in the UK and Ireland. And since it's a very hard, round, long-lasting layered candy, it stops the mouth from being used for eating anything else. Okay, that's what Google says. Now this gobstopper is also red, but it's a darker shade of red than the strawberry click clack. At first I thought it looked like almost brown like chocolate. Then Pig sucks on it for a little bit, and then sticks his tongue out with the gobstopper on it, and it turned his tongue blue. The gobstopper's blue. And there's Arnold eating the strawberry things now. And Pig sucks on the gobstopper some more, sticks out his tongue again, and yellow. And then Pig catches Arnold's hand before he can grab any more candies. Sticks his tongue out one more time, and oh, there, now it's brown. Then Kipper finally decides that he would like one of each. Woo, deja vu. That sounds familiar. Yeah, that's what Toad finally decided when he was buying ice cream. He wanted one scoop of each flavor. It's a lot easier now, though, because one of each of the 4 kinds of candy, that's very doable, instead of like 20 scoops of ice cream. So Pig gets out a paper bag. Oni says, "A wise choice, if I may say so, Kipper," and pulls out one each of the candies. Fortunately, Arnold didn't eat all of them. There's still plenty left. And Pig says, "Well now, Arnold, ring it up on the till then." first I thought, until when? But when Pig said till, he meant cash register. Then Arnold presses the button. I think it's supposed to be some toy cash register, considering how colorful it is. Arnold presses the button, and the drawer pops out and boom! Bangs Arnold right in the face and knocks him down. Oh dear. No, actually, the drawer banged Arnold in the neck. And what's even worse is that he still had candies in his mouth. I'm surprised that didn't make him cough them all out and into the drawer. That would have been disgusting. Now, Pig's trying to figure out how much to charge Kipper for this. Can't really hear what he's saying, but I guess he's trying to do math in his head. Doesn't mention anything about pounds or pence, though, let alone dollars or cents. But Kipper doesn't have any money. Doesn't have any pockets either. Pig says, well, I can't just give them away. What else have you got? And Kipper picks up what he'd been twirling around earlier. It's a conker. I think conker's another word for chestnuts, because there was another Kipper episode that's mentioned conkers, and I read a book that sort of adapted that episode. We'll talk about that another day. But instead of conkers, the book said chestnuts. So I guess they must have adjusted the book a little bit for, the American publishers. So conkers are chestnuts, right? Okay, looks like conkers are actually called horse chestnuts. European horse chestnuts, Buckeye, conker tree. And somehow or another, Kipper managed to thread a string right down the middle. Are those things hollow in the middle? I'm doing some more research here. Kipper says that he's going to play a game with the conkers with Tiger later, and people in the UK actually do that. What they do is they poke a hole down the middle of the conker and put a string through it and tie the end together, and we got two players, each with their own conker on a string, and they try to hit each other's conkers together, and whichever one doesn't break is the winner. And Pig says, that sounds tricky. Kipper says, no, that's easy. And Pig says, really? That's the same really that they reused later in the final episode of the series, The Farm, right before Kipper shushed him. But there's no shushing here. Then Pig decides to let Kipper bring him some conkers, and Pig will give him a gobstopper for them. And Kipper thinks that's a great idea, and so he leaves and says he'll come back later with some conkers. Now then, we dissolve to the next scene, and here comes Tiger. Pig has another customer for his little candy shop, and they basically start doing the same thing that they did earlier with Kipper. Pig offers a quote-unquote free tasting, and then Pig starts eating all the candies in front of Tiger, starting once again with the sugar hearts. And what do you know, I'm actually recording this on Valentine's Day. How perfect is that? I imagine the sugar hearts that Pig is eating are a lot tastier than the ones that we used to have at school with the little words on. Pig said that his sugar hearts are more like jelly, whereas the ones with the messages on are more like chalk. Kind of hard to believe that Pepper Ann ate so many of those. So anyway, that scene does not last very long. We cut to the next scene. We see Kipper once again. Oh, did I mention that Arnold has a cute little apron on too? Little green thing? It just goes around his waist. It doesn't go over the shoulders like Pig's does. And now we see Kipper standing among the trees. And he's found another conker. Then he picks up this prickly green thing off the ground. And opens it up. Opens the shell up. And another conker comes out of it. So he just uses the parts that are inside. He says to himself, Tiger better hurry or there won't be any left. Then we fade to black, and a little bit later, Kipper is stringing a whole bunch of conkers together. He's got 5 of them on a string, and a whole pile of conkers next to him. You know, those conkers almost look a little bit like pretzel nuggets. Like they have like the dark brown crust on the outside and the little round spot in the middle that looks a little bit lighter. They look a little bit like that. Like those soft pretzel bites. And Kipper's sitting there at the bottom of the tree with his conkers waiting for Tiger. And then Tiger sneaks around the tree and says, Boo! Here I am! And Kipper shows him the conkers they found. And Tiger does not seem overly impressed. He says, Not bad, but I don't need lots of conkers because I have a super champion conker. Look! Gee, I wonder how these guys do that. Kipper did the same thing earlier. Tiger just pulls out this conker out from behind him, and both of his hands were empty before, but they don't have pockets. Where do they keep these things? Maybe they have some kind of magic hidden pockets somewhere, or maybe they hide things in their fur somehow? Who knows? Tiger says, Look, it's invincible. That line took me a while to fully understand. At first I thought maybe he said it's invisible, but that's not right because we clearly see this thing right in front of us. And so then I thought maybe Tiger said it's imbitsable, meaning it's impossible to smash it to bits, because we'll see that in a minute. But no, invincible means too powerful to be defeated or overcome. And sure enough, Kipper and Tiger starts playing with their conkers. If you look closely, Tiger's conker looks a little bit different than Kipper's. It's a lot rounder and a little bit more brown, and it doesn't have the lighter parts. Tiger says, "Okay, Kipper, let battle commence." And then Tiger whacks Kipper's conker with his, and Kipper's conker is totally destroyed. "Hey, told you, Kipper, my conker is invincible." And so Kipper tries again, puts another conker on his string, and Tiger just gives out a little yawn because he's that convinced that nothing's going to happen to his. And Kipper tries to whack Tiger's conker, and something cracks. And Kipper's excited at first. He says, "Yes, ha ha ha, invincible, eh, Tiger?" Because apparently he didn't notice at first that Kipper actually crushed his own conker in the process of hitting Tiger's. Then Tiger very calmly holds up his conker, which is still on his string. He clears his throat and says, 2-0. For a long time I didn't have any idea what that meant. 2-0. I didn't know that the word nil meant nothing, zero. Kind of like zilch or nada. I thought Tiger was saying that something was like way too nil, but he was actually saying the number 2, because his conker survived 2 rounds, and Kipper lost both of them, so I guess Tiger got 2 points and Kipper had 0, so Tiger and Kipper 2-0. Okay, that makes sense now. And Kipper kind of sadly says, well done, Tiger. You win. That was my last one. I'm surprised he said that was his last one, because didn't he have 5 conkers on his string originally? Maybe they did. No, that couldn't have been it either, because Tiger said 2-0. I was going to say, did they do 5 rounds and only show 2 of them? That's kind of confusing. If Kipper had 5 conkers on his string in the beginning, and then Tiger crushed 2 of them, how are those 2 his last ones? I don't know. Because Tiger points over to the pile of conkers that Kipper had been collecting. He said, "What about all those? You got loads left." And Kipper says, "No, I'm sorry, Tiger. Those are for Pig. He promised me a gobstopper if I gave him some conkers. Come on, give me a hand." So did Kipper only want to use 2 conkers for the game and then save the rest for Pig to exchange for a piece of candy? I don't know. Because he put 5 on the string. Maybe he took 3 off and set those aside to give to Pig, and then just used 2. I'm not sure. Let me know what you guys think. And after Kipper told Tiger about the gobstopper exchange that he's planning on doing, Tiger does not look too happy. He looks a little bit worried, actually. I wonder why. Another fade to black. Next scene. Ooh, here's Jake. We haven't seen Jake since we did the flying machine back in January. Oh, poor Pig is not looking so good. What happened? Pig says, "Made your mind up yet, Jake?" Jake is thinking very deeply, trying to... I guess he's trying to decide which of the 4 candies he wants. Says, no. Could you try the first one again? Oh, no. Jake's trying to decide which candy he wants, and apparently he made Pig try the candies in front of him over and over again. My goodness. So watching Pig enjoy the candies apparently wasn't enough to help Jake decide which one he wanted. And now Pig's eaten too much and getting a tummy ache, I guess. And here come Kipper and Tiger, both with a big armload of conkers. And they dump them on the table in front of Pig. Said, "Here you go, Pig, conkers." And Pig says, "Sorry, Kipper, I don't need lots of conkers anymore. I've got loads. Look." And Tiger tries to shush him as he's saying this. And Pig points to the cash register. And there's Arnold. This time he's holding a stick to try to push the button to open the cash register without getting hit by it. And it sort of works. It the drawer pops out and it doesn't hit Arnold, but some of the conkers come flying out and kind of bonks Arnold in the forehead, but it's not too bad. And the cash register is loaded with conkers. All 3 drawers loaded to the brim. Kipper says, "Oh no, who gave you those, Pig?" Pig says, "Tiger did. It was a swap. I gave him a gobstopper for them." And Tiger kind of smacks his face. He's like, "No, don't tell him that." Now, at the age of 3, I didn't know what a swap was. For a while, I thought he was saying something about a swab, like a cotton swab, like a Q-tip. But no, swap means trade. You know, I'm surprised that Arnold didn't get sick from eating all the candies earlier. Well, maybe he did and we just didn't see it. Fortunately, Pig didn't eat all the candies. They're still, the jars are still half full. Arnold's hiding under the table, sucking on something in his mouth, and the string's coming out of his mouth, and it's the string that Tiger's holding, which could only mean Kipper's pulling on the string and pulls this thing out of Arnold's mouth, and yes, it's not brown anymore, it's green! Tiger cheated. His so-called champion conker was one of Pig's gobstoppers. I guess those things are a lot harder than the conkers. Those gobstoppers that changed color, I think Wonka used to make those. Inspired by the book, they had these things called, they're called everlasting gobstoppers, because that's what they were called in the book, but I don't think they're really everlasting, but they do change color so you suck on them. I don't know if they still make those now or not. And finally, Jake decides that he wants one of the lemon fizzers. Pig's feeling really sick as he reaches in to grab the piece of yellow candy out, and he very wearily says, "Here you are, Jake, free of charge." I guess since Pig already had enough conkers, he didn't really feel like charging Jake for it, so just gave it to him. Kind of nice. Let me hear Jake thanking Pig as he, I guess he's getting ready to eat it now, because he says, "Oh, thanks, Pig." We just hear it off camera, then I assume Jake just sort of walks away because we don't see him anymore after this. Pig takes off the apron, just drops it to the ground and says, "Kipper, would you mind looking after the shop for me? I'm worn out." Kipper says, "Really? Your shop? Yeah." And Kipper had been holding Tiger's gobstopper on the string the whole time, and as he runs behind the counter, he kind of lets go of it, and before it falls to the ground, Tiger catches it. And for whatever reason, that makes him very happy to have it back again. Now Kipper's trying to sell Tiger some more candy, I guess. Kipper puts the apron on and says, "Perhaps you'd like a free tasting." Tiger says, "That's very kind, Kipper." But is it? Nope. Kipper snatches the jar away from Tiger and begins tasting the candies himself, just like Pig did. Oh my goodness. Episode concludes with Kipper tasting the first one. "First, there is the sugar heart." And that's it? Yep. Okay. Alrighty, so that was Kipper the Dog, Pig's Shop. And this episode was released on VHS and DVD in the Puppy Love collection, which was the last piece of physical media that was ever sold of Kipper the Dog. Yeah, when I was a kid, I enjoyed that episode. I especially liked hearing Pig describe all the different flavors of the candies and stuff. The whole thing with the Pig just tasting all the candies in front of his customers seems kind of weird, especially when Kipper went into it too towards the end. Although I guess he was kind of happy to finally do so, because I don't think Kipper had gotten any candy at all until the very end, because he wasn't able to give Pig the conkers because Pig had already had so many, and they never did do that gobstopper trade. But at least when Kipper got to take over the shop at the end, he got to taste everything himself, of course. It was also interesting how he solved the whole mystery of why Tiger's so-called conker managed to beat Kipper every time. They finally revealed the truth at the end that it was not a conker at all. It was one of those hard jawbreaker gobstopper things. So yeah, I enjoyed that. I'm not really the world's biggest candy fan. I mean, I do like chocolates, but I'm not really that big on fruity candies, because the majority of the fruit candies out there don't even have real fruit in them. It's just corn syrup and artificial colors and flavors and stuff. I mean, if it's something from Whole Foods Market or something that actually has some real good stuff in it, I'll eat it. But yeah, I'm the kind of person who definitely prefers chocolates over hard fruity candies. or soft ones for that matter. Oh, and Pig's Shop was written by Dave Ingham. Dave Ingham was also the writer of Hide and Seek, another one of my all-time favorite episodes. Alright, Pig's Shop was the A episode of this program. Let's take a look now at today's B episode. Today's B episode is called Water, Water Everywhere, which turns out to be a Samuel Taylor Coleridge reference from the 1798 poem The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, in which he says, "Water, water everywhere, not a drop to drink," or nor any drop to drink. Okay, so that's where Willy Wonka got that from, because when they were in the room with the fizzy lifting drinks, he said bubbles, bubbles everywhere, but not a drop to drink. Okay, so both Kipper and Willy Wonka kind of were inspired by that poem quote. Okay. So Water, Water Everywhere, the Kipper episode, is written by George Terry. Oh boy, this is gonna be a crazy one, because George Terry's Kipper episodes tend to be a little bit weird and a little bit wild, and it seems like this one's also going to be wet and wild. So let's see what kind of crazy story George is cooking up for us this time. First thing we see is a bird cleaning its wings in the dust, like kind of scrubbing itself against the ground. And this bird looks like he's thoroughly enjoying himself doing that. And Kipper and Tiger are sitting in the grass watching this bird. And Kipper says, "Doesn't having a dirt bath make you dirty?" And Tiger laughs. "At least you don't have to get wet." Eleanor wonders why answered that question. In the episode Bath Time, where Ari the Bat didn't want to take a bath, Eleanor and Olive were studying different animals and figuring out what kind of animals take baths and which ones don't, and why it's important to keep yourself clean. And they were watching these birds, and the birds on Eleanor Wonders Why were doing the exact same thing that this bird's doing here on Kipper. It was rolling around in the dust to get little bugs and things out of their feathers. And then Eleanor said that birds just shake off the dust when they're done. Oh yeah, it was chickens they were looking at. Chickens roll around in the dust to keep clean. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, who knows? Maybe one of these days we'll talk about Eleanor Wonders Why on this podcast, because that's one of the more recent PBS Kids shows that I enjoy. So Eleanor knows a lot more about the hygiene habits of birds than Kipper and Tiger do, apparently. Tiger says, "At least you don't have to get wet." Kipper says, "I like getting wet. I like playing with my boats in the bath." And Tiger says that he likes sinking things. When he says that he likes sinking things, I wonder what he means. Does he mean like putting heavy objects in the water and watching them sink? Or taking something in his hand and dunking it down to water? No, that couldn't be it, because he said he doesn't like getting wet. You'd have to get wet if you're pushing your hand down in. I don't know, maybe he just likes watching like heavy toys sink in the water. Who knows? Tiger actually doesn't really say much about not liking water, though. He mentioned that in other episodes. Like in the swimming pool, he said that he doesn't really like water all that much, and he couldn't swim, which is why he had to wear water wings. But he is willing to tolerate water. Tiger briefly mentions here that he likes paddling. By paddling, does that mean playing in like a small pool full of water? Because that's what Kipper calls his little wading pool. He calls it the paddling pool. Let's see what Google says here. In British English, paddling primarily refers to walking or playing barefoot in shallow water. Okay. Shallow water, that makes perfect sense. Because that would be an inflatable backyard pool with shallow water. Because once they're done with their little conversation about what they like to do when they're playing in water, Kipper finally suggests that they get out the paddling pool. Interesting, so this episode is kind of like a sequel to the episode, The Paddling Pool. I do have that one on this tape. It's one of the earlier ones, but we'll get to that one later. But this time, Kipper's going to play in the paddling pool with Tiger. That'll be cool, both literally and figuratively. So Kipper's going to go get his pool, and he tells Tiger to put the hose pipe on. And by that he means the garden hose. In some countries they call like an outdoor garden hose a hose pipe. So Tiger goes and finds the hose. It's on this like stand hooked onto the wall, all rolled up. Now we didn't have a thing to keep the hose on like that at our house. I think my dad just kept it rolled up and then hung it up in the garage, and then he would just pull it out and hook it up to the spigot on the side of the house. Kipper does have that, though. There's a little faucet thing right outside there. I remember I mean, my dad used to hook the hose up to the little faucet in the backyard to either fill up the pool or wash the car or something like that. I also remember using that little faucet thing without the hose to fill up the watering can. Dad used to have me water the flowers outside when I was little. I actually have a video of that somewhere. Maybe I'll put that in this month's little update trailer. That'd be cool. We'll put alongside a clip of this. So the hose is already hooked up to the faucet there, and Tiger is turning the handle, turning on the water, and the hose is still coiled up, but the end is hanging loose. Well, actually, there's a little short piece attached to the faucets, and then the rest of the longer hose is coiled up on the wall. Because when Tiger turns on the water, like a small portion of it starts swirling around all over the place, getting Tiger all wet, spraying him. Get a little out of control there for a second. Yeah, at first I didn't notice that there was a separate piece there, because it was just draped over the part that was all wrapped up, but I'm looking at it again now. Yeah, I see there's like 3 different end pieces there, with the 4th one being attached to the faucet. After Tiger finally steps on the hose on the ground and controls himself, he manages to turn off the water long enough to get the hose set up. Fortunately, he doesn't seem all that upset that he got sprayed like that. It must have felt pretty refreshing. I wonder if it's a hot summer day. Might be. Okay, now he got the hose hooked up to the longer piece, and he's pulling out the rest of it from the, gosh, what do you call that? That round thing it's all wrapped around. Garden hose reel. That's what it's called. Or I guess in the UK it would be a hose pipe reel. So pulling the hose out from the reel, Tiger turns on the water again, and at the end of the hose there's a little valve that Tiger can twist to, like, turn the water on and off from there without having to go back to the wall. So that's handy. And as Tiger walks away pulling out the rest of the hose, we see the parts that attaches to the smaller piece is starting to leak a little bit. It's starting to spray a little bit of water. And I have a feeling this is gonna have something to do with what happens later, because the music kind of implies that something's wrong here if you listen closely. Alright, now we see Kipper again, and he's blowing up the pool. The little backyard pool that we had when I was little wasn't inflatable. It was like a big plastic dish kind of thing. Yeah, it was the kind with hard sides, sort of like a rigid plastic pool is what we had. But Kipper's got the kind you gotta inflate, and he does not have a pump for it. He has to blow it up by hand, or by mouth rather. Kipper eventually asks Tiger if he'd be willing to help blow it up a little bit. He hands it to Tiger, and he seems to be okay with helping out, although we don't actually see Tiger blowing it up then, because we cut to the next scene, and the pool is all inflated, and it's being filled up with water. Now it's full. Kipper shuts off the water, and he and Tiger say, "Ready, steady, go!" And they jump right into the paddling pool together. They kind of slide around in it, trying to keep their balance. And it's a little bit crowded in there. They keep trying to stand up and find a place to sit, but they keep collapsing onto each other and like, Kipper says, "Sorry, it's not meant for 2 people," even though they're trying to use it for 2 people, or 2 dogs in this case. And it's not like Kipper's refusing to share it with Tiger, because you notice they both jumped in at the same time. I mean, Kipper said ready, and Tiger said steady, and then they said go together, so they knew they were both going to go in at the same time. So Kipper's totally okay with sharing his pool with Tiger. It's just that it's not really built for the 2 of them, because it's very small. And Tiger's looking kind of disappointed about that now. He just kind of sits on the edge there, and then Kipper joins him. And then Kipper picks up the hose and turns it back on again and points it straight up into the air, making rain. And I just paused this here. I'm just taking a quick little peek at the paddling pool episode here, which we'll talk about in a different episode, maybe later this summer. And I remember Kipper having a different hose in that episode, because in that one it had the kind of nozzle that you squeeze and it sprays out, I think. Or maybe you twist it on and off. I don't know. We'll talk about that later. But I'm looking at a picture of the paddling pool episode. Kipper had a different pool there than he has here. This one here in Water Everywhere is much smaller than he had originally. This one here looks like a big blue inner tube with, I guess, a little floor on it underneath. Whereas the original paddling pool had like these 3 layers with 2 blue and 1 like turquoise green. And the old one was much bigger than this one. And In the older episode, Kipper was having a lot of trouble with his paddling pool. Like, it had a leak and stuff, and he put a patch on it to try to reinflate it. Kipper must have got a new one after that episode, because the paddling pool was made in 97, and Water Everywhere was made in 99, so it's like 2 different seasons. Wow, that makes sense now, because Kipper was having all kinds of struggles with that older one, and since it had was getting holes in it and it was leaking and everything, maybe he decided to get a new one later. And also, this one's a lot smaller, so I wonder if maybe he got a smaller one because it was easier to blow up, because it took Kipper forever to blow up the other one. Interesting. So anyway, continuing on now with Water Everywhere. Tiger is now holding the hose up towards the sky, making rain, as the water just sprays straight up there. And wow, it actually made a rainbow, Kipper pointed it out. And Kipper wants to try and make a rainbow too, but before he can, Tiger sprays Kipper with the hose. And of course, Tiger is laughing hysterically at this. Then Kipper jumps out of the pool and steps onto the hose, causing the water to stop. Here we go. It's the classic standing on the hose prank. They did this on Little Bear too, in the episode Father Bear's Little Helper, with Little Bear and Father Bear doing stuff in the garden, and they were watering the plants with the hose. Tiger's shaking the hose, wondering what happened to the water, why it's not working. And of course, we see a big bubble bulging where Kipper was standing on the hose. He steps away, and the water goes through and squirts Tiger right in the face. And then Kipper stands on the hose again, this time, I guess, a little bit longer because the bulge next to his feet in the hose gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And meanwhile, the part where the 2 pieces of the hose connect together, nobody knows this yet, but it's wiggling out of control. It's still leaking like crazy, and then I guess the pressure buildup is too much, and the 2 parts of the hose burst apart, and then the smaller piece where the water's actually coming out swirls around and around and around, and then it lands on the windowsill, hanging inside the house, pouring water onto the floor. Oh no, that's gonna be trouble. But nobody knows about this yet but us. We cut back to the backyard, dissolves in the next scene. I guess it's a little bit later. And there's a frog hopping along, jumping in all of the puddles that Kipper and Tiger had made. And once again, I can't help but wonder if this was originally Tiger's tadpole from the episode The Goldfish. I mean, it could just be any old frog, but you never know. And Kipper's impressed that the frog's hopping along on the puddles and not even touching dry land. And Kipper picks up the frog and says, "Hello, frog. You're clever, aren't you?" And says, "Here, try this." And he just tosses the frog into the paddling pool. And oh wow, Tiger was in the pool, but he doesn't freak out over the frog. I guess he saw Kipper coming with it. And Tiger steps out of the pool and says, "Watch this." And then he jumps on the puddle just like the frog, without touching dry land. And Kipper says, "I can do that." And he does the same thing. And Kipper and Tiger just lay down in the puddles there. These puddles are just on the grass, by the way, which means that you would think they'd be pretty muddy. And yes, Kipper does say that it's hot out, so it makes perfect sense that they'd want to play in the water on a day like today. And they're both really tired from playing in the water, and Tiger yawns and says, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if we had a really big paddling pool?" Well, Kipper used to have one, but I guess he threw it away because it was too old and too big. But Kipper seems to agree. He says, "Yeah." And Tiger says, "Big as a football stadium." You really gotta think about that one, because remember, this show is made in the UK, and what the people in Britain call football is what we in America call soccer. I guess the kind of field that Tiger is referring to would be bigger anyway, because Google says that soccer fields are significantly larger than American football fields, typically offering roughly 30% more total playing area. It says American football fields are usually 120 by 53 yards, and professional soccer pitches usually 110 by 120 yards. Or no, I'm sorry, between 110 and 120 by 70 to 80. Okay. But they didn't bother changing that line when they aired it in the US because I guess it wouldn't really matter because soccer fields and football fields are both really big. Kipper says, "Oh yeah, bigger." Like he thinks it should be even bigger than a football stadium. But then Tiger says, "No, that's so silly." Just confirming the fact that he was joking all along. Because yeah, that would be even bigger than an Olympic pool if it was bigger than a football stadium. There were two other shows when I was little that compared something to being as big as a football field. On Reading Rainbow in the episode, well, actually, two episodes, both Animal Cafe and Stella Luna, where they showed the guy exploring the Bat Cave, he said that the cave was like a big tunnel as long as a football stadium. And also on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, when they went into the Nabisco graham cracker factory, my favorite episode, by the way, the lady who was taking Mr. Rogers on the tour of the place said that the big ovens were about as long as a football field. These big, long ovens that the crackers went through. Yeah, that was the fifth and final part of the daycare and night care story arc. So anyway, as Kipper and Tiger were talking about what if they had a big pool, the frog hopped out of their paddling pool and just hopped along the puddles once again towards Kipper and Tiger, and then just he lands on Kipper's belly. And Kipper just very sleepily looks up and says, "Oh, hello, silly frog." Actually, no, just listen to that again. It was kind of hard to tell what he was saying because he was trying to talk through a yawn. He actually said, "Oh, hello, little frog." Hello, little frog. I always thought he said, "Hello, silly frog," but yeah, little frog works too. Then Kipper lies back down and falls asleep. I guess Tiger did too. And we fade to black, and here comes the next scene. Kipper kind of sputters and coughs a little bit as he wakes up and sits up. He must have rolled over. Yeah, he's not on his back anymore, and the frog's just sitting right next to him, waiting for him to wake up. Oh, that frog's so cute. Remember the frog from what was it? The Gizmo, where he climbed up onto Tiger's boats and followed them home. This frog's really interested in these two dogs. As Kipper wakes up, he sees the frog. He's like, "Hello, you still here?" And then as Tiger wakes up, he's all grossed out as he sits up. He says he's all covered in mud. He says they both are. It's kind of strange because on the picture here, we don't see any mud on them. They just appear to be sitting up out of these puddles of water, and there's no brown everywhere. But I was saying earlier that if you have puddles like that on the grass, then naturally it would make mud. So even though we can't see the mud, Tiger did in fact confirm that there's mud there, and he can see and feel it on himself, even though we don't see it. But Kipper doesn't care at the moment. He's playing with the frog once again. And Kipper says, "Burp." Did he just tell that frog to burp? Maybe he did, because Kipper kind of tickles the frog's belly a little bit, and the frog ribbits a couple times, and then frog puffs out his belly real big right in front of Kipper as he's sitting on his hand. Do frogs really puff up that big? Yeah, I guess some frogs do. Reminds me of one of those rubber squeeze toys that's like, you squeeze this and this like big bubble comes out and then goes back in when you let go. Kipper seems a little bit shocked by this for some reason. Maybe when Kipper said burp, maybe he was getting the frog to ribbit at him, like to talk to him. But maybe Kipper wasn't expecting him to actually burp at him that big by puffing his belly out. A little surprised there. So then Tiger goes over to the garden hose, which is not running. He picks it up and looks inside and says, "Kipper, the hose isn't working." And Kipper thinks it might be turned off, but neither of them had turned it off. Tiger didn't either. Well, we know why that hose isn't working, and they're about to find out why in a few seconds. That was the hose that got disconnected from the water source. And where's the water pouring into? Yep, here comes Kipper, still holding the frog, and he sees the hose dangling inside the window. He says, "Oh no!" And he quick turns off the water, and calls for Tiger to come over and see. And Tiger runs over, and they both look inside, and what? We see the two dogs and the frog looking inside the window. The inside of the house is flooded. The water is like halfway between the floor and the windowsill. And we see a mug and a frying pan and a salt shaker. And is that the cheese dish from Hide and Seek? I think it might be. That little triangular thing. And the reason I'm going, what? Is because they're looking in there and they're not freaking out. In fact, they're smiling. What? I'm looking at this now and I was thinking, how did this not scare me when I was little? But I think that's why. Because Kipper and Tiger are not frightened by this. they look pretty interested in what they see. I guess it was because they were talking about wanting a great big paddling pool, and now they accidentally made one out of Kipper's house. So now they're happy because they have a bigger paddling pool to play in. Wow. This is so unreal, ladies and gentlemen. Like, if this were any other show, you would think that the characters that are seeing this, especially whoever's house this belongs to, would be freaking out by now. Because ordinarily, like in real life, this would be considered a home disaster. Like, can you imagine the amount of damages this would cause? And how much stuff Kipper could potentially lose? Like, where the heck is this comic book collection? That's probably soaked to pulp by now. I sure hope Kipper put his favorite comics on a high shelf somewhere. This reminds me of the episode Big Owl's Bath. Well, Kipper will have no problem giving his stuffed animals a bath now. Like, how much water is in Kipper's house right now? Does he even have a basement? I don't remember. I don't think he does. I know he has an attic, because he went up in the attic in the episode, Nothing Ever Happens. I don't think he has a basement or a cellar. Franklin did, but not Kipper. I would assume not, because it would have taken a long time for the basement to fill up before the rest of the house did. Unless, of course, the basement door is closed, and the house is just filling up on the first floor, and then the water would just be trickling down to the basement through the air ducts or whatever. Now, the part with the hose leaking and exploding and spinning around and falling into the windowsill, that part was a little bit scary when I was little. But this scene right here, with the house being filled up with water and Kipper and Tiger noticing it, strangely enough, this did not scare me, mainly because the two characters on screen, well, three characters if we count the frog, seem excited about this. Like, they're happy. They want to get in there and play. And I guess my thought process when I was little was, well, if the characters on screen are happy, then I'm happy. So, whatever. Yeah, this is a rare situation where not knowing the context of what's happening in the episode actually made it a lot more enjoyable when I was younger. Because knowing exactly what's going on now, this is borderline horrifying. Like, I certainly would be if my house had that much water in it. And this is very different from the Oswald episode, The Leaky Faucet. Because in that one, the pipes underneath the sink, Oswald was trying to fix them, but he wasn't able to. They ended up leaking so much that it flooded not only Oswald's apartments, but the entire town, too. That one was scary. Similar to the Arnold Lobel book, Mouse Tales, the story about the bath, where the mouse was taking a bath and he left the water run, filled up the tub, which filled up the bathroom, and then filled up the house, and then filled up the entire town eventually. It's another story that was kind of scary. And speaking of Arnold Lobel, yeah, if I remember correctly, I think this happened to Frog and Toad too. Yes, there's an episode called The Flood, and I think it was Toad's house that got flooded somehow or another. I think it was a leaky roof. I'm pretty sure that one's in season 2, so we might talk about that one next year. Anywho, let's continue on now and see what Kipper and Tiger are gonna do about Kipper's house flood. They just look inside and they see the frog jumping in and they're laughing and cheering because the frog's doing exactly what they want to do. They want to go inside and have a swim. And they get a good laugh of watching the frog climb into the mug like a little boat. That's really cute. And then Kipper has an idea. Is it an idea to clean all the water out of the house? We fade to black and go to the next scene. Nope. They're dragging the paddling pool into the house, trying to squeeze it through the window. They eventually do. Then Kipper says, "Have you got water in your ears?" Tiger says, "Hmm?" And we actually see water dripping out of his ears. Kipper says, "Have you got water in your ears?" And Tiger kind of, slaps the side of his head a little bit to try to shake the water out. I'm not sure that's the best way to do that, though. And Tiger says, "Sorry, I've got water in my ears. What did you say?" That's exactly what Kipper said, and you just answered his question, so there's not really anything else you need to know. Yeah, I always hated getting water in my ears when I was a kid. I've had all kinds of problems with my ears. My hearing is okay, but I've had a bunch of issues with, earwax and barometric pressure and stuff. Whenever I would go to the pool, afterwards my mom would always take a cotton swab with vinegar and stick it in each of my ears. I guess the vinegar is supposed to, get rid of the moisture inside your ears to prevent ear infections. Because when I was 2 years old, I got swimmer's ear somehow. Very first time I was in a big pool. My mom never understood how that happened because I didn't even have my head under the water. Maybe it splashed in somehow, I don't know. But despite that, I always loved going to the pool. I liked playing in the water. I was never really a good swimmer, though, despite the fact that my mom got me swimming lessons for many years when I was in elementary school. I never quite got it. Being autistic, it was very difficult for me to synchronize my upper body with my lower body. And also, the water was like a very high sensory stimulant for me. Like, I enjoyed it so much that it was hard for me to pay attention to what my swim teachers were saying. So, yeah, no, hopefully, someday I could learn to swim the right way. I'm not quite as concerned about it now, though, because I'm much taller now, so I can go a lot deeper into the pool without lifting my feet off the bottom. I can still keep my head above the water. So anyway, Kipper and Tiger climb into the paddling pool, but this time there's no water inside the pool, at least not very much. All the water is outside the pool. It's backwards. And they're using the paddling pool as a little, paddle boats, I guess. And then we see Pig and Arnold outside of Kipper's door. Pig's knocking on the door, but Kipper and Tiger didn't notice. Doesn't Kipper have a doorbell? Geez, I wonder if the flood somehow broke the doorbell. Maybe Pig tried it, it didn't work, so now he's knocking. It's probably also worth noting that Pig is holding what looks like a rolled up towel. And of course, Arnold is still chronically addicted to sucking his thumb as he always is. Like, he sucks his thumb way more often than Linus. Meanwhile, inside, Kipper and Tiger are trying to get their paddling pool boats to move around the flood house, but they keep going around in circles. Yeah, how do I describe this? They're, I was gonna say they're kind of sitting the same direction. Like, if it is the same direction if you consider the fact that, Tiger is sitting at one spot in the pool, and if you kind of go around the perimeter until you get to Kipper, Kipper's pretty much sitting the same way. But if you position the pool so that you see both Kipper and Tiger at the same time, then they are kind of sitting it in opposite directions. Okay. Yeah, I've always been bad with spatial concepts. So they're using their hands to sort of propel themselves through the water. Both Kipper and Tiger are using their right paws. Oh, wait a minute. There was a similar situation on Blue's Clues, wasn't there? Yeah. Man, I think I only saw that episode once. It's crazy I still remember it. It was one of the later ones with Joe. What was that episode called? Was it The Boat Float? Yeah, they were talking to a canoe, and this poor little canoe that can make himself go, he had both of his oars on one side, and even though they were kind of scooping into the water the same way, he was going around in circles. And then they figured out that he was supposed to have his oars on either side of the boat, not both on the same side. Okay, yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, that episode of Blue's Clues was The Boat Float, and it was hosted by Joe, and it aired in September 2002. Okay. So anyway, Kipper and Tiger are kind of learning the same thing right here. Although Kipper says, "You're paddling the wrong way," and Tiger says, "No, I'm not. You should be facing the other way." Well, that's pretty much the same thing, Tiger. I guess it's just that he doesn't want to be blamed for what's happening. But the truth is, they're both doing it wrong. They both need to be on either side of the boat and move the water like that. They need to be positioned so that when you look straight at the boat, you can see both of their faces at the same time. And Pig's still knocking at the door. He tries opening the door, but the door is locked. And he even looks inside the mail slot, but doesn't see anything. I'm surprised Pig didn't see the water when he looked through the mail slot. I don't know, maybe he just didn't open it wide enough to actually see what was going on. He opened the mail slot to see if Kipper and Tiger would hear them, but they didn't. They're now paddling along the right way, and the two of them are actually using all four of their paws now. Well, no, not all four of their paws, but they're both using both hands, if you know what I mean. And their hind legs are still inside the boat. And they sort of go along through the doorway there. And back outside, Pig finally says, "Come on, let's try the back door." And so they do, but before Arnold follows Pig, Arnold opens up the mail slot, and immediately water starts spraying out onto Arnold's face. But how come that didn't happen with Pig earlier? Arnold just got sprayed, but Pig didn't. I can never figure that out. Although I'm thinking I wonder if the water was kind of like sloshing back and forth, and at the end of the wave, it kind of went above and below the mail slot each time. That could be it. Because that would be right about where the water line is, I assume. And the way the water might have been sloshing up and down. Maybe it was down when Pig opened the mail slots, and then it went up when Arnold was looking in. That could be it. And there's Kipper and Tiger getting out of their paddling pool boats and sitting on the steps now. And the steps have a carpet going down the middle, which is not only getting wet, but probably getting dirty also. I mean, who knows what could be mixing in with that water by now. Sheesh. But Kipper says, wouldn't it be great if it could stay like this forever? And Tiger agrees, yeah. And they just sit on the steps and sigh. Not the way I just sighed, though. I still can't believe Kipper is being so chill about this. It's amazing what a little bit of novelty can do to you. Like, you see something interesting and you wish it would stay like that forever. Well, what's gonna happen if it does? Like, Kipper, aren't you going to miss being able to sleep in your nice dry basket bed? I mean, come on, let's be real here. And where do you keep your cornflakes? Those have gotta be inedible by now. And oh yeah, there's the back door. Pig's knocking there now. That's the same back door that Kipper came out of at the beginning of the paddling pool episode. So it makes perfect sense that Pig would go back there. Those stairs that Kipper and Tiger are sitting on, they don't have any railings on them. Like, it's not even like a narrow hallway with the stairwell. Like, the one side is just out in the open and the other side's up against the wall, but neither side has any railings. It's actually a lot safer to climb those stairs now, because if you fall, at least you got water to land into. And Kipper finally hears Pig. He says, Pig? Pig, is that you? And apparently, Pig might be able to hear Kipper, because he says, what are you doing? And as they were sitting on the steps, the paddling pool had flowed away. And then Kipper jumps off the steps and into the water. And then he shouts, Pig, don't open the door! Don't open the door! But Pig does open the door because, maybe Pig thought that he heard Kipper say, open the door, but Pig didn't hear don't. And the back door is unlocked because I assume Kipper must have gone in and out of the back door to get the paddling pool. So he left that door unlocked. And now Pig is opening it. Here we go. Here comes the water. Jeez, that's lots and lots of water there. And along with the water, out come that frog is still in the cup and having the time of his life, sliding down that big waterfall coming out of the house. And there goes the paddling pool. Yep. And some more cups and dishes and a frying pan, and Kipper's rubber duckies coming out too. So is it mostly just the kitchen that got flooded? There had to have been more than that. And exactly how long does it take for all that water to get out? It's pretty long. Let's see. I'm looking at the timer here. 7:42. Pig opens the door. Yep, there goes the water. The stuff comes out. 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50. So that's like 8 seconds of waterfall right there. And it's as tall as Pig, which doesn't really make sense because then it would be higher than the windowsill. I don't know what the animators were thinking there. But yeah, that massive water flow is almost to the top of the door frame right there. And Pig got knocked over by it. Kipper and Tiger are now peeking out the door, and there's a massive puddle outside with the cups and things. Oh dear, I hope that stuff didn't get broken in the process. I see a little triangle there. Is that the cheese dish again? I hope so. Hope it's not a piece of a broken mug. Or maybe it's something sticking out through the deep puddle, because part of the one mug there is kind of cut off, like it's underneath the water. And there's Pig's towel back there. It's not going to be much good now because it's soaking wet. You have to hang it on the clothesline or something before you can use it. And Pig and Arnold got trapped underneath the paddling pool as they got flooded out. Pig pushes the pool off of them and kind of coughs a little bit. Arnold and I were wondering if you'd like to come swimming. You were wondering if Kipper and Tiger would like to go swimming? They've just been swimming for the last hour. Or however long that was. And Kipper and Tiger burst out laughing because that's exactly what they were doing. They were swimming in the house. Into the paddling pool earlier. So that's why Pig was carrying the towel, because he wanted them to go with them to the big swimming pool again. The swimming pool from 1999 was one of my absolute favorite episodes, actually. I think that one was a lot better than this, too. And then the final shot, we see the frog jumping onto Pig's belly, and then Pig starts laughing a little bit. And that's it. That was Kipper the Dog, Water, Water Everywhere, written by George Terry, who wrote Kipper Circus that we talked about last month, and some of the other episodes of Kipper the Dog that tend to be a little bit more on the weirder side. Holy cow, that one was bonkers, especially the second half. Like, can you imagine showing up at somebody's house, asking them if they want to go with you to the public swimming pool, and then opening up their door and having an entire flood just fall right on top of you? My goodness. That was ridiculous. And in case you were wondering which home video this was released on, Water, Water Everywhere was released on VHS and DVD in the Fun in the Sun collection. Okay. When I was 6 years old, my first grade class did a school concerts, like our music class. We had learned a bunch of songs and we sang them in front of an audience. And we did this at a church building just a few blocks away from our school because we didn't have an auditorium, or maybe we had a multi-purpose room, but it was pretty small, and I guess it was being used for something else, so we rented out this church to do it in. And while we were there, we were using the restroom, and that was the very first time in my life that I ever saw a toilet overflow. I guess one of the kids had put too much paper in it or something. Like, up until then, I had absolutely no idea that toilets can do that. Just seeing it pour water right onto the floor like that. And that was a horrifying experience for me. And knowing what happens in stories like this, and also the stories that I mentioned in Oswald and the Mouse Tales book, Mouse Tales especially, because that was a bathtub that overflowed and filled up the bathroom and the house and eventually the entire town. And seeing what a garden hose could do to Kipper's house made me wonder how much damage a toilet could do to a church building or whatever building it's in. Yeah, so seeing a problem like that's happen in real life and knowing what happens in ridiculous cartoons like this kind of made me a little bit afraid of toilets for a while. Not that I didn't use them, but I was just afraid to flush them, you know? Which is kind of strange because when I was even younger, like a toddler and preschooler, I enjoyed watching toilets flush because I noticed that each make and model had like a different kind of water pattern, and the way the water moved through it looked different, and each one sounded a little bit different, and I can remember which stores and which buildings around town had certain kinds of toilets. The same way I can remember which stores had different kinds of automatic doors or something like that, or certain kinds of elevators. I enjoyed remembering little details like that. I also liked waterfalls and drinking fountains and eventually car washes when I was a little bit older. So I was really fascinated by a lot of things that involved water, like especially if it was like a controlled situation where the water does what it's supposed to do and like doesn't get all over me or all over anything that's not supposed to. So knowing later that toilets could malfunction and create a mess on the floor frightened me enormously. But I eventually got over it after a while. That scene towards the end where Pig opened the door and all the water came out reminded me of a TV commercial for something. It wasn't even animated, it was live action. What was that commercial for? Was it State Farm Insurance or ServPro or something? Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, no, I searched YouTube for a couple minutes there and I wasn't able to find it. But I remember it vividly. It was sometime between 2002 and 2005, sometime in the early 2000s. It was either on the Weather Channel or our local NBC station, I forget which. But I'm pretty sure it was for some kind of insurance company or home restoration thing. Like maybe State Farm or ServPro or something, I'm not sure. But there was a guy that went up to the door of a house and opened it up and all this water came out. But it was only high for like about 1 second compared to the 8 seconds that was on Kipper. And when the water got low, it was still coming out. And I think there was a dog or a cat or something floating on a piece of furniture as it was coming out. I don't really remember anything else about it, except I remember thinking when I was little, hey, it's just like what happened on Kipper. Only it happened a lot faster. I guess there wasn't as much water in the house, as exaggerated as it was on Kipper. So yeah, this is basically another Parents Beware situation. Once again, this is why I do this podcast, to make you guys aware of the things that happen in these shows in case you want to share these with the next generation. If you're letting very young children watch Kipper the dog, this particular episode might be a little bit scary, especially if they don't already know the realities of how floods work and what happens when there is a flood in the house. I guess what George Terry was trying to do here when he wrote this was try to take a disastrous situation and try and make it fun, I guess? Maybe? I mean, for comedy, I guess it works, but in terms of showing little kids how the world works, that doesn't really work for me. So yeah, the show depicts the flood as being something silly and fun, but you might want to make sure, especially once your kids get a little older, make sure your kids understand the realities of what a flood can actually do to your house or the things that are in it. Alright, so that's that. We've actually exceeded an hour this time, so this episode's a little bit longer than the typical Kipper episode, so I'm going to cut right here. By longer, I mean longer podcast episode talking about Kipper. The actual TV show's a regular 23 minutes. Now, since we're past the hour mark, I'm going to stop right here before we go into the C episode and roll the intermission, which is the message that I usually play at the end of the show when we talk about Kipper. So when we come back, we're going to talk about the third and final story in this half-hour program, which will be the costume party. I'll be back with that in a moment. Kids TV and Me is a fan-made podcast, and it is not affiliated with any of the programs, production companies, or networks mentioned on the show. My primary goal of this podcast is to shine the spotlight on some of the lower stimulation alternatives to traditional children's programming, and to help you make smart decisions about your children's screen time. If you are enjoying this podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if your podcast provider has a comment section, let me know your thoughts on the topics we've talked about today. To keep the conversation going, you can also leave me a message on Instagram at Joshua Stauffer Creations and on Substack at joshuastauffer1.substack.com, where you can also read my Little Joshua webcomics, my book, Meet Zoe Richards, and coming soon, the sequel, Zoe's Friends. Remember to always pay close attention to what your children are watching, and as always, don't be childish, but stay childlike. And we're back. It's time to analyze one more episode of Kipper today. Let's take a look at The Costume Party, which was written by Dave Ingham, who also wrote Pig's Shop and Hide and Seek, of course. The Costume Party was released on home video in the Imagine That collection. So let's see what this party's all about. The first thing we see is Kipper's front door. This is the inside view because the doormat's underneath. And we see a letter coming down through the mail slot. Kipper walks over and picks it up, and he reads, quote, "Dear Kipper, please come to my costume party. There will be games and a prize for the best costume. Hope to see you later. Tiger. P.S. My costume is a surprise, but please don't come as a pirate." Okay, so Tiger's setting up this party, and he says his costume is a surprise, but he doesn't want anybody to come as a pirate. Yeah, not quite sure it's a surprise. I wonder if that means that he's going to be a pirate, and he doesn't want anyone else to wear the same thing he's wearing. Seems pretty obvious to me. And Kipper's really excited about this. He's looking forward to it. So now he's trying to decide what kind of costume he should wear. Maybe a fireman? Or a big green space monster? Or a spooky ghost, perhaps? I wonder if that's a reference to the episode about the little ghost. And he thinks, what about going as a big, hairy gorilla? And then he starts pounding his chest and pretending to be a gorilla. Goes, ooh, 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 ooh. Kind of slides across the floor, kind of a silly way. Yeah, he's like walking on his hands, kind of sliding his feet underneath him, silly way. Then he looks out the window and he says, "No, it's far too hot to be wearing something that hairy. If it's hot out, then this is probably not the fall." I was gonna say, is this sort of like a pseudo Halloween special? But maybe not. If it's in the middle of summer, maybe Tiger's doing this party just for fun. Fine by me. And then Kipper remembers that he has an old Indian chief suit. He thinks that might be perfect. And he opens up his closet, the same closet from the tag sale episode, aka the jumble sale. Let me look at the original episode list here as far as chronological order. He opens his closet and it's still messy inside. There's tons of stuff in there. Where did he get all that stuff? I thought Pig got rid of all that stuff in the jumble sale, because the jumble sale is episode 55 and the costume party is episode 59. So the costume party would be after Pig cleaned out his closets and sold everything to the jumble sale. I also just noticed that Water Water Everywhere is right after the jumble sale. It's episode 56, which means that aside from the comic books, his closet would have been nearly empty. So during that flood, he wouldn't have lost a whole lot of the stuff that was in the closet. I just hope that the comics were on a high shelf, like I said earlier. But no, the closet's a mess once again. So yeah, this is definitely a continuity error. He climbs up and pulls a box off of a high shelf, blows dust off of it, and he's getting ready to open it, and all the stuff collapses on top of him from the top shelf, because this box was on the bottom of the top shelf, and there was all this stuff sitting on top of it. And when he pulled that box out, everything that was sitting on top of the box fell on top of him. There's all kinds of assorted toys in there. There's tennis rackets, hula hoops, kites, footballs. It actually looks like an American football. There's a shovel for whatever reason, a jigsaw puzzle, there's books, all kinds of things. A telescope too. Who knows what else? A toy airplane, dominoes, a toy car, big blue toy car. And this is almost exactly what happened in the paddling pool episode, because the deflated pool was also on a high shelf, and he pulled that out and everything fell on top of him then. I don't know if it happens in other episodes besides paddling pool, tag sale, and costume party. If you put those three together, I guess it could be considered a running gag. Oh, also, there's that top hat from Nothing Ever Happens. I think he found that hat in the attic originally, and I guess he didn't feel like climbing all the way back up there to put it away, so he just stuffed it in his closet then. That makes sense, because in Nothing Ever Happens, he built this really dangerous-looking ladder out of his toys to try to climb up there to get into the attic, and then that tower fell down before he had a chance to get down, and then he just fell out of the attic, and it seemed like he would have hurt himself a lot worse than he did, but he eventually got down. I don't blame him for not wanting to do that again. Put a hat in the closet instead. Anywho, Kipper opens the box to get his Indian costume out. Then he faded black, and then they show us Kipper with the costume on, and he's looking at himself in the mirror, and it does not look too great. It's tired and worn, and the feathers are all crumbled up. Now, I don't know a whole lot about Native Americans and stuff, so I don't know how this costume looks compared to the real thing, but if you're worried about this not looking right, you don't have to worry, because Kipper doesn't really like it either. He's decided not to wear that. Kipper takes off his Indian chief suit and says, "Why don't I hire a costume? Yeah, that's it. From a fancy dress shop." Ooh, interesting. I guess by hire a costume, he either means like buy a new one or rent one somewhere. So then we dissolve to what is presumably some kind of clothing store or something, like a dress shop. We don't really see a whole lot of it, though. All we see is just these plain walls and a wooden swinging door, which I assume is the fitting room. I'm a little bit disappointed that we didn't get to see more of the dress shop, but when I was little, I was happy to see the doors, because I like doors. These are the kind of doors that just kind of hang in the middle of the frame. They don't go all the way from the floor to the ceiling or anything. When you push through them, they just kind of swing back into the middle, and they can go either way. When I was 3 years old, I thought those doors looked like kind of fun. Like, I want to push through those doors like Kipper's doing right now, I thought. And so here comes Kipper. He's wearing this outfit that's pink with yellow spots, and it's got these light blue pom-poms on it, and he's wearing these really huge floppy shoes, pointy hats, these white lacy things around the neck and at the ends of the sleeves, and pants. And Kipper looks at himself, he says, "No, it's far too silly. I think it's supposed to be a clown suit," which I didn't really figure out at first because he didn't have a red nose or anything, but I'm pretty sure that's what it's supposed to be. Going back through the doors again, and a few seconds later, Kipper pops back out, wearing a crown and fairy wings and a pink tutu, and also holding a magic wand. Okay then. And Kipper kind of dances around a little bit, and then says, "Nope." And he turns around and goes back into the fitting room. And here comes Kipper again, wearing a pirate costume with some kind of rubber parrot on his shoulder. Really impressive costume, by the way. He jumps out and says, "Yes, brilliant. Pirate Kipper of the high seas. When he said pirate, I didn't hear the second syllable of pirate. I thought he just said, Hi, Kipper of the high seas, which I don't know what that would have meant, but I guess because he's sailing on the high seas, his name would be High Kipper, sailing on the high seas, I don't know. But it's Pirate Kipper of the high seas. And then he remembers, oh, Tiger said no one could go as a pirate. That's too bad, because that pirate costume looks really good on Kipper. Another fade to black, and here comes the next scene. Kipper's looking at a book, and are those pictures of humans in that book? He reads, a pilot, a policeman, porcupine. Maybe he's looking at a catalog to try to decide on some other costumes, but he still can't decide. He closes the book. Oh, he was sitting at the kitchen table there, because that's the kitchen chair. And as he gets up, it kind of looks like he's pushing the chair in, but the chair doesn't move, so I mean, I assume that's what he's doing, or unless he's just leaning on it, I don't know. And he says, I wonder if Pig has got any ideas. And then we dissolve to what I assume is Pig's telephone. It's hanging on the wall, and it has kind of like a little electronic ringtone, like bloop, bloop, bloop. Yeah, that phone is definitely very 90s, or at least late 80s. It's not like the traditional bell ringtone, like the kind that Kipper has. This one's a little bit more modern. And we see Pig walking into the picture. Hey, Pig's wearing that silly costume that Kipper was trying on earlier, with the big shoes and the pink outfit with the yellow spots and the blue pom-poms. And as he's trying to get to the phone, he says, stupid shoes. Second time in a row I've heard Pig say stupid. Well, actually third, because he said it twice in The Lost Mug. He said, guess who's gotta find that stupid thing and stupid birds. So yeah, despite the fact that Pig was as big of a clean freak to want to make Kipper clean out his closets, his language is a little bit messy, especially for a kid's show. And he can barely walk in those massive floppy shoes, and he falls down before he can pick up the phone. He tries to get up, and by the time he's finally able to answer the phone, I guess Kipper had given up and just hung up. I don't think Kipper has an answering machine, because it didn't go to voicemail or anything. Pig just picks it up and says, hello, hello? And he looks at it and he just hangs it up and says, oh, missed it. And here comes Arnold. He's got something on his head, some yellow thing, with a string around it tied to the back of his head. Pig says, Arnold, it's not a hat, it's a duck's bill. And he grabs the yellow thing off of Arnold's head, pulls it back, and then lets go, and bang, it just kind of snaps back and hits Arnold in the face, covering up his snout. So now it looks like a duck's bill. And Pig walks away saying, I'm certain to win the prize for the best costume, Arnold. Oh yeah, because there's going to be a prize for the best costume, and Pig's hoping that he'll win. He himself, not Arnold. Arnold's costume is very simple. It's just a little duck beak on a rubber band. It looks kind of cute, but I remember thinking when I was little, I wouldn't want to wear that thing if it's covering my whole face. Like, first of all, how would I breathe? And secondly, just party hats with rubber bands were brutal enough. To have to wear something like that on my face, I would not have liked that at all. Meanwhile, Kipper's still trying to decide what he should wear for the party. He's reviewing all of his ideas and all the ones that didn't work, going over all the stuff that he tried already. He says he can't go as a pirate because Tiger said so. He can't go as a clown or a fairy. Yep, definitely a clown, okay. And of course his Indian chief costume's ruined. And he sits in his basket bed with his blanket around him. Then he looks at the blanket, and he says, yes! Ha ha! And then he runs back to, oh, Kipper, you forgot to clean up the mess from your closet and everything fell out. Well, maybe he'll do it after the party. So he's got a brilliant idea now. He's got his blanket tied around his neck now. And he remembers something that he found in the closet earlier. I forgot to mention this. Right before Kipper opened up his box with the Indian costume, he picked up this thing that looks like these, like superhero goggles. Like this little felt mask kind of thing. And he just wore it briefly and laughed a little bit, and then just tossed it away, not really thinking about it. But now he's remembering that he had tried that on earlier, and he puts that on along with his blanket cape, and now he's Wonder Kipper the Super Dog. Now he's ready to go to the party. He's got an excellent costume. And mind you, this was before we had the episode Kipper the Hero. That was the third to last one. It was the A episode of the final program. In that one, he just called himself Super Dog. He didn't call himself Wonder Kipper. But he had a very similar outfit to this. Yeah, in that episode, he was inspired by a comic book to become a hero and to try to help all of his friends. try to rescue them. And now he's doing something very similar here for the costume party. We got another fade to black. Next scene, we're outside. There's Pig again in his clown costume. At first I thought Pig said my cow costume is definitely going to win. I didn't hear the L or the N when I was 3. That I thought, well, it does have spots, but it's not black and white, and it's not exactly a cow. But no, Pig said my clown costume is definitely going to win. Oh, and if you look closely, right as the picture fades back in that scene, for a split second we see Arnold walking away, and Pig's trying to follow him. That's why he says, "Slow down a bit, Arnold." When they all arrive at Tiger's house, Kipper jumps over to Pig and Arnold and says, "Ta-da! It's Wonder Kipper the Super Dog. What do you think, Pig? Good, isn't it?" And Pig says, "Well, it's not bad. Not as good as mine, though." "Splendid, isn't it?" And Kipper says, yes, it really suits you, Pig." I don't know if he really meant that or if he was just trying to be nice. Then he looks at Arnold and asks him what he's supposed to be. Then Arnold pulls out his thumb from his mouth and he says, "Back." That is Arnold's catchphrase. Almost every time that we hear Arnold say something, it's always, "Back." That was the first word he ever said, and it will eventually be his last, too. Although there was one episode where we hear him say one different word, but we'll do that another day. See, Arnold loves going to the park and feeding the ducks at the duck pond, and that's why he always says, "Duck." Right after that, Tiger opens up the door, and he's wearing the pirate costume. Yep, I know it. He says, "Hello, me hearties, step aboard." And they all walk inside. And there's another one. There's a lot of fades to black in this episode. It's like split up into 5 little parts, I guess. So now they're inside, and Tiger says, "Does anybody know where Jake's got to?" And Kipper says, "Well, I don't know. I'm sure he'll be here soon." But Tiger doesn't want to wait any longer. He says, "We'll just have to present the prize without him." And Pig once again shows off his costume and says, "My costume's great, isn't it, Tiger?" Yeah, Pig's being very egotistical about his costume, whereas Kipper's being a little bit more humble about it. I mean, he does like his own costume, but he doesn't keep talking about it nonstop. The only time he said anything about it so far was when he first met Pig that day. And Pig just fell down again. I know this sounds cruel, but he kind of deserved that, the way he keeps bragging about his own costume. And Kipper asks, "So what's the prize then, Tiger?" And Tiger says, "Follow me." And then I guess they're going over to a different part of the room. Tiger picks something off the table, and it's some kind of wrapped present with a bow around it. Oh, I see. Kipper and Pig are kind of standing up against the wall, the invisible wall, since it's just another white background like everything else. And Arnold had put his duck bill on his head once again so he could suck his thumb. And Pig takes off his head and pulls it back, and bang, snaps it back on his face. "Pig, will you stop doing that, please? Could you at least do it a little bit more gently? Like, come on, you can't do that. Not with like a rubber band like that. So you don't pull something back with a rubber band and like have it slap back into somebody's face like that. That's just stupid. Even more stupid than your shoes. Not that I think his shoes are stupid. He called his own shoes stupid earlier, remember? And as they're standing there leaning on the wall, Tiger's holding the present and saying, "Ahem. After deep and serious thought and much consideration, I have finally decided on the winner. I shall now present the prize for the best costume to..." Ding dong. And then the doorbell rings. Yeah, Tiger's doorbell is more of like a ding dong, and Kipper's is more like a bling, bling. And that must be Jake at the door. And as Tiger looks over towards the door, that rubber parrot that's on Tiger's shoulder kind of bobs up and down as if it's looking at the present, trying to poke at it with its beak. That's kind of funny. So Jake slates, but Tiger puts down the present because he still wants to see what he dressed up as. And Pig's getting a little impatient. He says, "Tiger, who's the winner? Who's the winner?" And so Tiger opens the door and Kipper's right behind him. They look out and they start laughing. And there's Jake wearing the fairy costume with the crown, the magic wand, and the wings, and the pink skirt thing. Okay then, so how's this gonna turn out? Tiger says, "I shall now present the prize for the best costume to Jake." And as Tiger said that, Pig was kind of holding out his hands, expecting Tiger to hand him the present, but nope, it's for Jake, and Pig looks disappointed. And the two dogs cheer, while Jake says, "I've never won a prize before." And Tiger hands him the present and pulls open the ribbons. The box opens up, and there's a chocolate cake with white frosting and little dots of red frosting on each slice. And Pig looks happy now. Oh, look, Arnold, it's a cake! And everybody takes a slice. And as they eat, Kipper says, looks like we've all won the prize, Pig. Alright, so all turned out well for everybody there. So the winner basically just got to reveal the cake, but everybody got to eat it anyway. So that's really cool. Pig didn't really have to worry so much about who the winner would be anyway, because they all got to eat cake. And Tiger says, come on everybody, let's play some party games. And Jake says, could we play blind man's what? What does he say? At first I thought he said blind man's bath, but I think it's blind man's buff, B-U-F-F. It's either called buff or bluff. Blind man's buff is a classic children's tag game dating back 2,000 years where one blindfolded player, attempts to tag others in a designated area. Okay, so it's basically blindfolded tag. Okay, I don't think I've ever played that before. Blind man's buff. So that's what Jake wants to do, and Kipper thinks that's a good idea, and he also suggests musical chairs. They all walk off to play the game somewhere, and Pig tries to follow them, and he's still carrying his cake and struggling with his big floppy shoes, and he loses his balance and collapses to the floor and falls on his face, but fortunately he lands on the cake in his hand instead of the floor, and then everybody laughs. At first I thought, oh, poor Pig. But a second or two later, he just licks the frosting off his face and starts laughing himself. So he's not hurt, and his fall was kind of tasty, so no worries there. Everybody had a great time at the costume party. The end. Alright, and during the credit roll, we get one more look at the little hallway at the dress shop with the swinging fitting room doors. It's kind of cool, because when I was 3, that would have been the shot that I would have picked for the final picture in the credits. Because like I said, they always use a still shot from the C episode whenever they did the 3-part programs on Nick Jr. Alright, so that was Kipper the dog, the costume party. That was a fun episode. It was cool seeing Kipper try on all those costumes. I also liked that little nod to Kipper's superhero persona, which is almost like foreshadowing to the episode that we'll get later, Kipper the hero. I wonder which costume Tiger would have picked for the winner if Jake hadn't showed up. Because Pig's was definitely the more elaborate costume compared to Kipper, although Kipper seemed to be a better sport about it than Pig. Yeah, I don't know. I guess when Jake showed up, the reason Tiger picked that one was because, I don't know, it was either maybe the funniest or the most surprising or the most unique. And I just want to say something right now. Before you guys start making 10,000 weird comments about Jake's costume choice here, just keep in mind that this was 1999, okay? And in those days, generally speaking, seeing something like that in a cartoon was considered funny. That's all I'm going to say about that. So yeah, all 3 of these Kipper episodes were kind of fun. I liked Pig's shop. It was fun seeing Pig describe all the little candies there. It was also interesting to see the truth being revealed about Tiger's phony conker, the one that was quote-unquote invincible, which I thought meant imbitsable. I didn't particularly approve of Pig tasting all the candies in front of Kipper. That was kind of weird. But towards the end, we did see Pig get a tummy ache from eating so many of those, so we did get to see the consequences of that, and Pig kind of learned it as well. And speaking of Pig, in the final episode, the costume party, he kept bragging about his clown costume being so great, and he was being kind of foolish about it, and he kept tripping and falling. And in the end, he ended up not winning, so he kind of got his just desserts there. But I am glad that Jake was willing to share his prize cake with everybody. So that was cool. Water Everywhere was definitely the weirdest out of the 3. Like I said, I enjoyed playing in water when I was little, but seeing a house get flooded was definitely would have been scary if it had happened in real life. And at the end where Pig got that whole big waterfall poured on him, and right afterwards he said, Arnold and I were wondering if you'd like to come swimming. Reminds me of one of my favorite episodes, the swimming pool. Someday we'll talk about that one, because that one's a lot of fun. I don't know if we'll do it this year, though, but eventually. And like I said, I didn't eat a whole lot of candy growing up. Being on a gluten-free and dairy-free diet, I did eat a lot of fruit candies, though. Much more so than chocolates. As for me now, it's kind of the other way around. I prefer chocolates over fruit candies, because most of the fruit ones are artificially flavored. Did I like dressing up when I was a kid? We didn't really celebrate Halloween a whole lot, but once in a while I did enjoy making homemade costumes where we'd cut out pieces of paper and cardboard and I'd put like a mask on or a hat that I'd made. One time my dad made for me, or I forget who made it. It was either my mom or my dad, but we made this alien hat out of paper plates that had the middle cut out. And I put it on and it had these funny little paper things that came out. That was my alien hat. I wore that, I don't know if it was Halloween related, but it was the fall of 2001 when I was 4 years old. That was just something that we did for fun at home. And of course, as a small child, I had all 3 of these episodes memorized when I was a kid, and I enjoyed acting them out with my little hand puppets and stuffed animals. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about Pig's Shop, Water Everywhere, and the costume party. That was kind of fun. Let me take a look at my list here and see which Kipper episodes we'll be talking about next month in April. Okay, our next Kipper analysis will feature the camping trip, the igloo, and hiccups. That'll be next month. Next week, we will continue our analysis of the Apple TV series Frog and Toad, in which we'll be talking about Season 1, Episode 3A and B, Spring, and Dragons and Giants. Spring is based on the first chapter of the first book, Frog and Toad Are Friends, and Dragons and Giants is based on the 4th chapter of Frog and Toad Together. Those are 2 of my favorite Frog and Toad stories, so I'm looking forward to talking to you guys about that next week. Until we meet again, this is Joshua Stauffer signing out. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.